Our conversation with Sean Houle continues.
So I tracked him with my dog. We tracked through the woods into an apartment complex, which was on the other side, and to what ended up being the front door of the driver of the car I stopped. It's the only thing Quentin really knew in Kernersville was that spot, being from High Point. And so the door was locked to the apartment, so we knew he wasn't in there. I took Jax back out to the woods, which was my dog. I took Jax back out to the wooded area, and I started working my way through the wooded area, feeling quite confident that he was just laid down somewhere in there, just waiting for us to leave. I worked my way through most of the woods. I had about a quarter of the woods left, and supervisor on duty that night ended up calling the track, just saying to terminate the track for whatever reason, and Quentin was not able to be located at that point, which would have been ideal because at that point I had a dog out and I had a backup officer with me, which would have obviously drastically changed circumstances. But I do believe everything happens for a reason, for sure. So he's not found right away. Well, I take the driver of the car to jail. The driver of that vehicle, our contact that we had from previous encounters, was he had a relative pass away. And I handled that investigation, which was very uncommon because being a canine officer, typically try to stay away from investigations that tie me up for a length of time. So I'd actually discovered that he had that warrant, the same one I stopped him for that night, which was like 2 months prior. I did not arrest him on it then because he had a relative that just died and had to deal with like funeral arrangements and stuff like that. Could not get anybody to help him with that. It was like no family was answering the phone or anything. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to arrest you tonight, but you have a warrant and you need to go get it taken care of. So I take that fella to jail. He was the only of the two that we arrested, him and the other person. He was the only one that was polite and respectful. I think that goes a lot toward like our previous dealings. And I always, with everybody, gave respect. Everybody's a human. Everybody's another person. Everybody's a human being. I gave respect to get respect. Until you gave me a reason not to, So that was how I was very fair with everybody. And I used my discretion widely. So that night I take him to jail. It was like 3 a.m. at this point. He is cold. He has no money. I know this. And so I'm like, all right, I'm going to give you a ride back to your apartment because he got released from the jail that same night. I take him back to his apartment. My lights, I had my high beams on my headlights on my Tahoe. They shine across the back of a vehicle in the parking lot. When they shine across the back of that vehicle, I see an individual sitting in the driver's seat of said vehicle, and they ducked down. As soon as my lights shine across, they ducked down. But I had already seen, before he ducked down, I knew it was Quentin. Like I could just tell from the back, I knew it was Quentin. Still did not know who he was. Quentin was not identified until he was apprehended later that morning after shooting me. So we still had no idea who he was at that point. Didn't know his history, didn't know anything. I go to make contact with him, and I do. He can see me fully uniformed, police. He sees all that. I'm clearly a cop. And as I get closer, I can very clearly see it's Quentin. So like I know this is the guy. He's under arrest because he ran from my traffic stop. So I have him on that charge and whatever else he has going on. And I'm giving him commands. You're under arrest. Let me see your hands. All those things that you hear and like cops and everything else. And he's just not, same as before, just not listening. It's like he's looking through me. He's like shaking his head no. So he's acknowledging what I'm saying because I'm getting a response. I actually got a verbal response. He actually told me no. So like he's responding to what I'm saying. He's shaking his head no and he's saying no. Like he's not going to do what I'm telling him to do. So, okay. So in that moment, he dives from the driver's seat of that vehicle over toward the passenger side area. I was brought up in law enforcement of the mindset that, and I believe it's right, that you don't depend on your tools. I feel like over dependence on your tools, your equipment can lead to bad things. It can get you hurt. Sometimes you get hurt regardless, but it can just, I don't believe in it. So I see him make this move, and the way I was brought up in law enforcement is gain physical control first, attempt to gain physical control first. And then if things escalate from there, you do what you have to do. But so honestly, I expected the door of the vehicle to be locked, right? I figured he just would have locked the car door when he seen me coming up. But when he makes this move, that triggers in my mind, grab a hold of him. I reach to open the door. It is unlocked, swings open. I grab him with my left hand, and his momentum, he was a bigger guy than I was, and his momentum actually pulls me into the vehicle with him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so we're inside of this vehicle, and it's a 90s model Toyota Corolla. I don't know if you know how small those things are, but they are
Yes.
very tiny. There
Kind
is
of a compact car.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
no room in there. I mean, so we are now two full-grown men. I was about 185 pounds, in good shape.
Mm.
He was bigger than I was. Full-grown men in a very violent fight immediately, because as soon as I go into the vehicle with him, like his weight and momentum pull me in there with him, it was an immediate fight. Like there was no necessarily pull away. Like a lot of people you'll see will like resist to get away.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a difference with resist to get away and resist to fight. And in his situation, it was a resist to fight. He was fighting me. And so, there's punching, there's kicking, there's just body parts are flying everywhere in this car, in this
Wow.
tiny vehicle. And it was violent, fast. And so I realized the intensity of the situation pretty quickly. And if you've been policing any length of time, and I had many, many, many people resist to get away, and I've had some fight too, but you can tell it's a difference. Like I knew there was an intensity there that was different than others I'd experienced. So during this fight, at some point, and it had to have been him. It was not me, so I can only assume it was him. But the passenger side door of the vehicle opens up. Now here's the problem. When this happens, by happenstance, I fall out first. And when I fall out because I fell out first, I fell out on my back, and he falls out on top of me.
Wow.
Which
is that kind of the worst position to
Yes.
be in? Okay.
You never, ever want to be a cop on your back with a suspect on top of you, especially a violent suspect on top of you. That is the worst position to be in. So you may not have completely lost control, but you certainly have lost the upper hand. And there's just so many things that can be done to you from that position. And you're behind the eight ball because now you have to sort of try to work yourself out of that position, if at all possible, while also still fending off a fight or fighting. It's just a really bad position to be in. So, and I knew this right away, but there was nothing I could do. I mean, it wasn't like I put myself in that position. It was just, I happened to fall out first. He's against the door. He falls out first, and now I'm on top of him, which is a much better spot. It just happened to work out that way. So he's on top of me. And Quentin did have a firearm, which I don't know if a lot of people know that or not, but he did have a firearm, which...
Do people think it was your gun? Is that why?
Well, it was.
Okay, I see. Okay.
Yeah, so mine was in play, and mine is what I end up getting shot with.
Okay.
But a lot of people don't realize that he did have one also, which I didn't even know that. It wasn't until body camera was reviewed, and then when they picked me up to put me on the stretcher, they found his gun underneath me. So I guess during our fight, I had actually knocked his gun out of his hands and did not realize it. So he was trying to pull it on me, and I can only assume shoot me during the fight, but I had knocked it out of his hands.
Okay.
And he couldn't find his because it was under me. So we're on the ground, and it's continuing to get worse. And I'm now in a position where the worst mindset you can be in as a cop is, dear Lord, I just need to hold on until somebody gets here.
Oh, my.
Because when entered into that mindset, that means that you have likely lost control or you are on the verge of losing control completely. And I knew that I was on the verge. And so I just was thinking to myself, I was calling for help, just thinking to myself, dear Lord, just somebody get here and help me get this guy in cuffs before it gets even worse. And so we're fighting on the ground, continuing outside the car, and I'm not going to let him go. Just not going to do it. It's not in my nature. It's not my job as a cop. My job is not to let people go. I mean, you've got I let that one guy go on a warrant when his relative died, but it's not your job to let people go. It's your job to apprehend people breaking the law.
Okay.
And so I was not going to let him go, and I knew this was a bad guy. I was not going to let him go. And so what I ended up doing is I got him in sort of a headlock, and I wrapped my legs around his body and I crossed my ankles. And that was my hope, was that we could just sort of stay in that position until other officers arrived. And then we could get him in cuffs with more people. But what ends up happening is he realizes that he has leverage with his lower body on the ground, and he is able, with his upper body strength, to pick me up off the ground as I'm latched onto him, because I'm not letting go, and drive me back down into the asphalt with all his body weight. And so we do this, up and drive back down, up and drive back down. And at a point during all that, I go to try to manipulate my firearm, and it's in my right hand, and it's now sort of off to the side. I'm still latched on, but like with my legs. And he gets me up in the air, and it was the highest he had got me up to that point. And it was the final slam into the ground. Gets me up, slams me into the ground. I hit hard, head hits, back of head hits, hand hits the asphalt, which pops my gun out of my hand, and it bounces off to my right.
Oh, wow.
Yep. So that's where that comes from. He's come out of the headlock that I had him in. So now he's completely free, basically. I make eye contact with him, and I see him look over toward my gun.
Mm.
And I remember thinking to myself, please don't go for my gun. I remember thinking it in my head, don't go for my gun. And no sooner than I think that thought, I see he dives sort of out from between my legs. I'm now sort of laid on my side at this point, and I can see my gun where it's at. I can't get to it. And I see Quentin's hand hit it, and it spins, and it lines up perfect with my face. And as soon as it lines up with my face, the trigger's pulled. He pulls the trigger with his thumb on the ground, with his thumb while the gun is on the ground. I see the muzzle flash. I hear the boom, and it was like I got hit with a sledgehammer in my face. Everything in this general area sort of goes numb. And I remember kind of looking to see, I'm still on the ground. I'm kind of like looking to see what I could see. And it was like a faucet.
Oh, my.
Of blood coming out of my face. And it was just,
So, Sean, did you think that was it?
100%.
You did?
Absolutely. I had seen enough video. I've watched videos. Something that you do in law enforcement, you're always watching other cops' videos. You're watching, especially the violent encounters and stuff. And there's one video I watched in particular that really, I wish I never did. It was hard to watch. But it was an officer that he got stabbed, and he didn't make it. And in his body camera, you could actually hear the arterial bleed. It was like a faucet.
Oh.
Like you could actually hear the flowing of, and I could actually hear mine. I could hear it coming out of me. And it's just a really, oh gosh, how do you describe that feeling? I was a saved Christian before this happened, and there was no doubt in my mind at all that I was going to die. I told myself that in my head. I said, this is it. Like, I'm going to die like this in a cold parking lot next to a set of dumpsters, on this night. And I remember I closed my eyes, not to give up, but I just closed them for a second. And when I closed them, I could see my wife and my kids. And so a lot of times when I would leave for work, and if Ellie was home and not working, um, everything like that, she would be on the front porch. She'd be home because at the time our youngest was 8 months old. Tucker was 4, and Tanner was 8 months. She would be holding Tanner, and Tucker a lot of the time would be standing next to her on the porch, or either he would run down the driveway and like chase my patrol vehicle out the driveway as I left. And so like I'd always do the lights and the siren, and I'd leave out
Oh,
like that.
wow. So that was kind of the routine. Okay.
Yep. And I remember closing my eyes, and I just had this image of my wife and my kids standing there, like on the porch, and like I could see, and they looked so real. I felt like I could reach out and touch them. And when I saw this, the only way I know it, this shot of energy, this strength just came, like washed over me like a wave. Like it just came over me, and I felt good. Like I felt like I hadn't even been shot at all. And I remember I opened my eyes back up, and I didn't see him right away. And I kind of look, and then pick him back up. I see him. He's kind of near my feet, and he's still ground level, and he's getting back up. And as he's getting up, he's raising the gun up. Like I see the gun coming up again, and I know that I'm going to be executed laying here if I don't do something. My family, my wife and my kids, seeing them that way, it gave me the strength. And I just remember I popped up off the ground like I hadn't been shot at all. And I reached out my left hand to where I saw the gun coming up, and then I felt it against my palm. I closed, and I didn't have a ton of strength. I mean, I had enough to get up and do, like, that was probably all I had really, was to do that. I jerked it just to get it away from my head, off line of my head. So if the bullet was fired, it would go anywhere but my head. And I do that, and he fires the second shot, which goes through the center of my hand and blows out the back and takes off my middle finger. And then I fell, continued to sort of spin, and I fell back to the ground face first. I could only get on the radio 3 times. I got on the radio the first to say I'm in a fight in my location. I got on the second time to repeat my location because it was sort of muffled where Quentin was against my mic. And then the third time I got on the radio and said, "Help, I'm dying." And I never lost consciousness. I don't know if a lot of people know that either, but I never lost consciousness throughout the entire thing. I stayed awake the whole time.
Wow, no, I did not know that.
From first shot all the way to being wheeled into the hospital on the stretcher, I stayed awake the whole time.
And all of that is still in your memory?
100%.
Wow.
I remember everything.
Okay.
Every detail. And it replays in my head pretty often. And I remember just laying there after I fell back to the ground. My buddies got to me 17 seconds after the second time I was shot. So very quick. And that was really the only reason they believed that I didn't get shot a third time, was because they showed up so quickly. Because there was indications that he was prepared to actually shoot me a third time because I was still alive. You could tell that. But they showed up. And so I think that prevented that. And he ran. A huge perimeter got set up by probably 7 different agents. I mean, a lot of, I think Guilford came, High Point, Greensboro, Forsyth, Highway Patrol, Winston. And there may have been others, but a lot of people, right?
Okay.
So it was just a huge dragnet of officers out there. And from what I understand, one of my buddies actually from the sheriff's office actually is the one who saw him initially later that morning. From what I understand, they had put everything out in the news. I don't think the severity of my injuries were known right away. I think it was sort of portrayed more as like a less. I mean, it was an officer shot, but like a less serious in terms of injuries.
Okay, was that intentional?
I just don't think anybody really knew.
Okay.
I think that the public information officer was putting the information out. I don't think he really knew how bad it was
Okay.
yet, because like, everybody was still trying, like just scrambling to get a lot of things done, and obviously first and foremost try to find Quentin. And so there's a lot of moving parts. But the severity of my injury was that um, it was a 45 caliber hollow
Mm.
point bullet that was just a matter of feet away. It shattered the right side of my face. It ricocheted up. It severed my carotid artery at the base of my skull. Then it lodged behind my neck. And this one on my hand was a through and through and took off the middle finger. And so, as a result, mainly of the carotid artery, I ended up bleeding out over 3.5 times. I had to get 72 units of blood. I had a stroke. And then obviously they had to reconstruct my face. They had to reconstruct my artery, and they had to reconstruct my hand. So it was very serious immediately. They really didn't think I was going to make it through the night, honestly. They were having to give me so much blood.
Mm.
I kept bleeding it out. That's why I bled out over 3.5 times. When I say that, people are like, "What? How do you bleed out over 3.5 times?" Because they were replacing my blood. I just kept bleeding it back out. So over 3.5 times, I bled everything I had out, and they just kept replacing it. So I ended up getting 72 units before it was all said and done.
And Sean, I do want to bring in a picture here. When you see that, kind of what's going through your mind as you look over and kind of process the situation you were in?
Yeah, it's hard to believe. Um, it's still it's hard because I remember waking up. Um, I remember that's in the ICU, and I think that's a couple days after, or maybe the next day. Um, and it just brings me back to that point when I woke up.
Mhm.
Um, Waking up with all the tubes and my mouth and jaw being uh, wired, I think already at that point. Not being able to speak, having the effects of the stroke, which left the left side of my body um, basically paralyzed. Um, I remember I woke up to Ellie sitting to my right, I believe. Yeah, because I couldn't see out of my left. I couldn't see anything to my left side, so she was sitting on my right.
How hard was that to have your wife and children see you like that and not
Hard,
really being able to explain?
a lot of tears.
Mm.
I had to write everything. I
Mm.
was communicating on a whiteboard. We have in pieces of paper. We have all that stuff at home,
Wow.
and it just looks like a bunch of because I was, coming out of being sedated into like a mini coma. Basically, it was sedated. I was
Yeah.
rendered unconscious to have everything done to me, all the tubes put in, all that stuff, and so I was waking up out of that state, and so many of my faculties were not with me. So it's just there's words all over the place. I'm just writing where I can see to write, and it's not good writing, obviously either. Things like I remember I think the first thing I wrote was "I love you so much."
Mm.
Um, that was hard. Um, so just I didn't see my kids right away because we didn't want that. Well, one, they weren't allowed in the hospital, and we also didn't want them to see all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I saw my wife. She was the first person I saw when I woke up. The kids, we communicated over video call, and then everybody else too. And so I was just writing things on like a whiteboard and then showing it on the video. Um, it was the hardest thing about that night was and will always be Um, I never lost consciousness. So because I was awake the whole time and very with it, I couldn't breathe. I was struggling so hard to breathe.
Mm.
Um, but I kept thinking about Tanner because Tanner was 8 months old. And, Tucker was 4, and we had made memories. He was old enough to remember things we did. And then obviously my wife, we made, all the memories we made. And, but Tanner, I knew that he would be too young to remember anything. And, you see those stories, uh, different places where people leave their kids behind like that,
Yeah.
where they have to learn of their parents by pictures and stories and stuff like that. And that was so hard to, I think it kept me fighting extra hard, but it was so hard to think about that. I kept thinking about that I'm going to leave a kid behind without even knowing me.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, them seeing me, and then me seeing them, it was, it's like it was hard in just so many ways. It was happy in that I was still alive, but it was also, um, boy, I was just exhausted. I was
Yeah.
exhausted. Like, it's just a lot. My body had gone through, you know, enough for a lifetime.
Mhm.
And, I still feel the effects of that in different ways.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
you know, um, it's just, uh, but a lot of thankful though. I mean, hard, yes, a lot of tears, a lot of happy tears though too. The fact that I was still alive. And then a lot of, it's like, what does the future look like?
Yeah.
You know, what are the effects that's going to be on down the road? What's recovery look like? Is anything permanent to the point of affecting quality of life? There was a lot of questions.
Our conversation with Sean Houle continues.
A lot of the physical I was dealing with from the start kind of created a lot of those questions too. Because it's like I couldn't see from my left side, I couldn't do anything with my left side. And all these tubes, mouth and jaws where like I'm just like, what in the world, but I don't know what to think. My
Right.
body doesn't know what to feel. Like I've just everything's messed up. Um,
How long were you in the hospital for?
I think I was in for somewhere in between a month and a half,
Mm.
somewhere in between that time
Yeah.
frame. Um, I could have very easily could have been longer because there was a big issue was nutrition, and I
Mm.
had now had a mouth and jaw that's wired shut. I'm only able to take in fluids. I've been laid up for a long time, unable to do much of anything, and so I dropped down from like 185, pretty healthy, to 157, and was like skin and bones.
Mm.
And so I had a feeding tube in. I had a trach in. I had a feeding tube in. And so they actually they're like, if you can't get your caloric intake, if you can't get it up, take in, X amount. They had like a dietitian that had all this numbers and formulas and stuff. If you can't get this up, it's like your options are, A, go home, but go home with the feeding tube in place, which that feeding tube was disgusting. I'm sorry. It
Mhm.
gave me nutrition, but oh my gosh, that was disgusting. I would
Wow.
wake up at night or wake up in the morning if I slept a whole night, and it would have leaked and stuff, and
Oh, goodness.
it was nasty. It was just very gross.
So you definitely didn't
Did
wanna
not want the
have
feeding
that.
tube. No,
Okay.
I
Okay.
think I would have rather probably stayed in the hospital with the feeding tube than try to go home with the
Okay.
feeding tube. It just would have been way too much, on my wife especially. So we're in this like, given this ultimatum, like, okay, get it up, your own way, or these are your two options, home with feeding tube, or you're staying in the hospital longer with the feeding tube. So we just put the work in. My wife, who's a nurse in
Oh,
the
wow.
ER at Forsyth Hospital, she did all this research about like the best things like on a liquid diet that, in terms of calories and really, and she made this one thing. It's just like a chicken stew broth, because I obviously can't have anything solid. So like a chicken stew broth that was so loaded with fat, and it was so good for getting me back up to where I needed to be that the doctors over there in the Sticks Rehabilitation Center actually asked her for the recipe
Oh, wow.
to use for other patients
Oh, my
in similar
goodness.
situations.
Okay.
Yeah. So she was able through her recipes to get me, I was able to get up just enough, just barely over the cut line to where they could pull the feeding tube and I could go home a little earlier than I would have had that
Okay.
not been the case.
That's good.
So
Sean, I think we have some video of your recovery here. When I think we have more than just that. Yes. So
yeah,
I see the officers around you. What was the support like during that time? And I
oh, it
see,
was unbelievable.
yeah, is that you going through some of your rehab right
Yeah,
there?
I had to
Okay.
learn to walk again. I had to learn to do, that's just general exercise. But I had to learn to sort of walk. There was the trach, by the way. That's the trach I was
Okay.
talking about, that blue thing sticking out of my neck.
Wow.
Um, it that's the hyperbaric chamber. That's pretty wild, by the way. If you ever
Okay.
want to research that, see, that's pretty amazing what that can do. But yeah, it was pretty grueling. The recovery. It so their support was unbelievable. I mean, from all across the board, not just
Yeah.
from other officers and agencies. I was being brought letters upon letters from kids,
Yeah.
schools, and I mean it was just unbelievable, the support. And so like that picture in particular that you saw there, that you showed there with the dog, that was, there was folks lined on either side of the hallway. I couldn't see any of the people, which the people on the left side didn't realize this, and it had to be explained to them after the fact, but I couldn't see on my left.
Oh,
So, like,
yes, that's
I
right.
ignored everybody on the left side because I
Okay.
literally could not see them. Like, I was not looking to my left.
That's right.
And so people
That's
were
right.
like, "Did he even know I was there? Like,
Right.
what is
Not
going on?"
realizing that was
Yeah,
part
not
of
really.
the
It's part of
injury.
the medical. Yeah, it's part of
Okay.
the problem. It was the stroke. I couldn't see
Okay.
anything on my left. So,
Oh my goodness.
so that, they brought Jackson to the hospital. That was one of my first major surgeries. They brought Jackson to the hospital, which the hospital, Baptist was amazing throughout the whole process. They allowed Jackson. That dog's never been calm a day in his life. It's just, he's a Belgian Mal and he's nuts. And I distinctly remember him calmly putting his paws on my bed. He sniffed and licked at my shoulder and then sniffed and licked at the side of my face,
Mm.
calmly got back down and then just sat there and stared at me. I think he was feeling, I think it messed him up for a while. He was different for a while. Like personality was different.
Right. Right.
Like he babied me a lot, and it like I don't know. It's like almost like a survivor's guilt thing. If I like know if I don't know any other way to explain it, because like he's trained in that that exact scenario. He
Mhm.
is trained to apprehend the suspect with no command from me. If he sees somebody physically assaulting me, he's trained for his door to be popped open by me. He comes out and he apprehends the suspect, and I don't have to say a word. He just does it, and he knows this. And he could see the assault occurring, and he couldn't get out to help me. And my button wasn't working to pop the door, and so that wasn't happening. And so
Mhm.
my dog, who could get out and do something, couldn't. And I think it messed him up a little bit
Oh,
too,
wow.
like not being able to help me and do what he was trained to do. But
I never thought about that,
mhm.
the impact on
Oh yeah, there was
the
that
canine.
aspect for sure.
Yeah.
Because that bond between the two, between handler and canine, is it's pretty wild. It's very, very, very close.
Right.
He's with you through so much. Like we
Yeah.
went through so much together out there on the street, and I know that dog has my back to the ends of the earth.
Is he still living?
Yeah,
Okay.
yep,
Okay. Do
he's
you
with me.
have him?
Hmm.
Okay.
Yep,
Okay.
yep. The
Wow.
department retired him with me when
Okay.
the
Yes.
doctors came out and said that I would no longer be able to do the job.
Had you not been shot, would you still be a police officer?
Mm-hmm.
You would. Okay.
Yeah.
So it was career ending.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
How did you process that? It was something you love to do so much, and now it's over.
Not easily. I struggled with that. Struggled with that for a long time.
Mm.
Um, I had so many questions about my future. What does it look like? What am I going to do? For my passion that I fully expected to be doing for a 30-year career, um, or like basically a 30-year career.
Yes.
Um, for that to be taken from me at 31 years old was pretty shock. Like it was a shock. It was a shock to the system. I felt a little bit shell shocked, and I kind of didn't know what to think. I didn't know what to do. Was trying to imagine things moving forward. There was just so many questions, and it, if I'm being honest, still to this day, I still struggle with that in ways. Um, and I don't misunderstand. I don't want the public to take from this that um, I'm still grieving that loss of myself because it is like a it is like a loss of yourself and a piece of yourself.
That was part
When
of your
it
identity.
was 100%.
Mhm.
And when anybody loses something that they consider to be a part of their identity, you grieve it.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I'm not still grieving it like I was grieving it, but it's hard because, for me, and I think I can speak probably for a lot of other cops too, that like when it's in your blood and it's just like ingrained in you, like I can't go down the road and look out the window and see anything like sort of shady happening or like my police mindset is always going and it does not turn off. I always am looking at every situation like, what's going on here? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's that like an investigative nature, that sort of like nosy nature, I guess, in a way. Like I can't and I but at the end of that thought, I always come back to I can't do anything about it. So it's like it's tough. You want to. I'm thankful for that mindset because I do feel like that mindset does a good job of sort of keeps me on my toes. It's going to keep my family safe because I'm always on the lookout for things. And I would do anything and everything for my family. So I'm always sort of like hyper sensitive to my surroundings and what's going
Right.
on. I'm thankful for that. But there's a part of me though too, like knowing that I'm not, this is not my career anymore. This is not what I'm doing for a living. Part of me does feel like in some ways, man, I wish you just lose it. Like, I wish you just kind of forget because it is frustrating
Yeah.
sometimes. You know what I mean? It's like I want to be able to look at the world and situations not always from that lens
I
sometimes because
understand that.
it's
Yeah.
it's tough. And the only thing I have to really go back and get checks for is the carotid artery,
Okay.
um, making sure it's still flowing properly because they took a vein out of my leg and they tied one end of the artery to the other with it to create the new artery.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah, so they just making sure that's still functioning properly and all. So, um, it's it's been an interesting past 4 years, to say the least. But I'm just I'm really at the end of it all. I'm just really um, thankful more than anything. I would say, um, with all the tough times that there've been, the frustrations, the recovery. I'm just thankful for that. And when I was speaking about the mindset earlier, you take the mindset of okay, yes, this happened, but here's some positive, to sort of balance out the negative. Because there's goes without saying there's negative. You can look and you can find negative, but is that what you're making it all about?
Right.
And are you letting that negative situation define you and your future and who you are at the time? And that's and so I've had a lot of help in the way of doctors and psychologists and
Yeah.
medicines and stuff like that. I'm not above saying that. I mean, because it is what I encourage. If there's anybody out there in that situation, I encourage you to get help.
I
Get
was
help.
gonna ask you, did you have to go through therapy or do you
Mhm.
have a therapist you still work with?
I had to go through therapy for quite a while.
You did?
Yeah, I did. I
Okay.
don't currently do it. Like, I don't currently see somebody. My primary care, like, sort of just deals with things as they come now, and the medicines and things like that. But um, we just kind of take it day by day. And I
Yeah.
mean, no 2 days look the same. I could have a great couple weeks of you know just feeling on top of the world. It's the up and down is the thing.
Mhm.
It's harder for me to find a constant now
Yeah.
than it ever used to be. It was way more constant before all this than I am now. It's more up and down. So it's tough in that way. But you've got to seek the help. You have to seek the help. You should never be above getting the help.
That's right.
And then you have to work on that mindset, and it's not going to just come. It's not innate in most people. um, so you have to really develop it, and you have to just get to a place. And for me, faith has been a big aspect, a big part of that. It minus the faith, I don't know if I could have worked the mindset
So
in
do
this
you
way.
feel like that's why you survived?
Yeah, 100%. I don't feel like there's no. I've not been provided a medical explanation why yet. I mean, I know what they did, and they've told me what they've done, but even the doctors are saying it's a miracle. By faith, by the grace of God, that I'm sitting here right now, because I shouldn't be. I'm at a severed carotid artery. My artery was literally cut in half, and I bled out over 3.5 times. Not to mention the stroke that I was told in an older person, um, maybe in poorer health, but in an older person, certainly, that stroke would have rendered them, probably a vegetable, for lack of better. I mean, they wouldn't have been able to function. If you can explain to me a reason outside of faith, I would love to hear it. Because I don't know. I
Right.
cannot think of a single reason. Um, I had a lot of. I feel like I had an angel by my side that night. I feel like I was shown exactly what I needed to see to get me off that ground, because if I don't get up off the ground, grab the gun, then I'm just executed. I'm just a sitting duck for another bullet in my head, which, how big of a guy, I know our God is huge, but I think that would have been probably all she wrote. Um, so he showed me what I needed to see. I saw my wife and my two kids. That was what I needed to see. It gave me the strength, the energy. I got up, grabbed the gun. I mean, it just one thing to the next thing to the next thing. It's just sort of kind of a miracle, miracle after miracle, really.
Absolutely.
EMS is another aspect of it too. Like, EMS was, if I remember correctly, and I could be wrong, but I'm trying to recall, so forgive me if I am wrong, but I think that they were all the way, so we have a unit that's stationed in Kernersville. They were at Forsyth Hospital or something, got dispatched to like Clemens, because they dispatch by like closest unit or whatever,
Mhm.
whatever units are available. They had just got back into Kernersville and were like, I don't know, 5 to 10 minutes up the street from me when this happened. So they very easily could have been nowhere near me. And that's my transport to the hospital. The medics that came and helped me that night were medics I used to work with when I was with Forsyth County EMS.
Wow.
I'm very thankful to be here. Um, I'm hopeful that this story, I hope that it's helped people thus far, and I hope that it continues to help people.
And that's a big part of what you do is that
Mhm.
you go around sharing your story and encouraging people.
Yeah,
You've done that for the last 4 years?
pretty much off on. Yeah, I did it for a pretty steady rate at a pretty steady rate for a while,
Okay.
and it got to, admittedly, it got to be tough. It wore me down
Yeah.
mentally. I was really starting to kind of struggle a little bit, so I pulled back some. And now I've gotten back to doing it again, but I'm not going to schedule myself the way that I was,
I see,
because it
yes.
was I was doing too much.
Was
So,
it the replaying of it that
mhm,
maybe you underestimated at times of
yep,
it taking a toll, kind of reliving it over and over?
yep.
Okay,
Because
that's
in the
fair.
beginning, it did nothing but help me,
Yeah, yeah.
to talk about it. But then after a while, it was like, okay, you've talked about it, but now you're just reliving it.
Mm,
And I don't feel like in a place mentally yet to relive it so much and be okay with it.
okay.
It was too much. So, now where I do it more spread out, I can deal with it more easily. Faith matters, family matters, and staying in the fight matters. And I feel like it translates over. It kind of goes across the board because for me, my faith has been really everything. I think this situation looks much different if that doesn't exist for me, um, because I think there's no forgiveness. I
Mm,
think if that isn't present, um, I think that being able to work the mindset in a sort of a positive way as best I can, considering doesn't exist. So the faith is big for me. Family, obviously, I don't feel like anything should ever be put above your family. I loved, and that's something I really drive home for these officers now. Like when I talked to the Winston-Salem rookies today, like I probably said 5 or 6 times, do not put this job over your family. Like as
wow.
much as you love this job does not supersede your family. And if you work for anybody that tells you otherwise, forget them,
Mhm.
and you don't put it above your family. Um, so, and obviously, I shared with you what I saw that night. My family, I mean, the Lord, I feel like used them in that image I had of them to ultimately get me to do what I needed to do to survive. And that reoccurring thought of Tanner, while hard, I think that if I go unconscious, I think my body gives up.
Mhm.
And there's a greater chance that I don't make it to the hospital for them to do what they did. But I think because I stayed awake and kept thinking, had Tanner on my mind, had all these things, kept fighting, it caused my body to not give up, do the opposite. And then the staying in the fight, that doesn't have to be a literal physical fight. Um, I use it in law enforcement purposes, uh, for law enforcement purposes, in sort of that way more so than any other because obviously I kind of relate it to a situation like mine. Um, but it's not necessarily a literal fight. It's just any sort of battle that you're facing, which we all face
Yes.
battles daily, spiritually and otherwise.
Yes, we do.
And so you've got to stay in the fight. You can't give up because what are you doing for yourself and for anybody around you if you just give up? You're doing nothing. You're sending a poor message. You're setting yourself and well, if you've given up, you've failed, and you're setting other people up for failure because they see that in you. So you've got to stay in the fight. You just have to. Um, Life is too precious. There's too much to live for
Mm,
to give up.
yeah.
And so there's seasons to everything. That was a season in my life that I went through. I went through something very terrible. 100 out of 100 times, giving up is not the answer, and so that's why I really push that staying in the fight. You got to stay in the fight.
Awesome.
So and you know, it is. I like the whole pain is temporary. Like boxers and people and um, that do things that can be painful sometimes. They'll say the pain. Fight through it. The pain is temporary. It's true. It is temporary. The pain does go away eventually. You just got to fight through it enough. You got to fight to get to that other side to where it is gone.
That's
But it
right.
does go away. And as will your situation too. Eventually, you'll be on the other side of it, and things will be better. But you got to get there first. You can't give up on the way, or you'll
That-
never know that other side.
That's right. Sean Hool, everybody. Sean, thank you for being so generous with your time.
Yes, ma'am.
I didn't realize like 90 minutes has gone by, but
It's
thank you.
unbelievable. It's been 90 minutes.
Yeah,
Wow.
thank you so much. As we wrap this up, I think you've said it all, but just my last point I want to make is that you have forgiven Quentin Blocker. The sentencing happened, you were there. He's serving his time now. But you made sure to let him know that you do forgive him. Can you talk about that before we kind of head out here? And we do have a picture of you in the courtroom. And I believe this is the moment, yes, that you saw him face to face after everything that happened. Why was that important just to let him know that you've forgiven him?
Well, so it was important for a couple of reasons. And people don't, I guess this sounds bad when you say this part, this aspect of it, but there is a bit of a selfish reason to forgive. And it sounds bad when you put it like that, because selfishness is not a good thing, in most cases, probably all cases, really. But in this case, I feel like I've known people to hold on to things. You're holding yourself back. You're keeping yourself from that next level. You're getting to the other side of that storm that we were just talking about. You're keeping yourself from getting there, because you won't get there if you're holding on to it. And if you did want any positive messaging to come out of your situation, you cannot do that. That can't happen without forgiveness involved.
Right.
It can't. So that's the more selfish aspect of it. What you try to do as a Christian is you try to plant seeds. It's not, it doesn't consist of going and shoving a Bible down somebody's throat, or, I'm not taking anything away from knowing the Bible. You should know the Bible, but obviously that turns a lot of people off. So it's not involving that. You're not shoving a Bible down anybody's throat. You're not, it's little things, little glimpses of God, of Christ in people here on this side. And so planting a seed in this case involved showing Quentin that forgiveness does exist. And if I can forgive him for what he did to me, he can be forgiven also through Christ. You can't talk about a lack of Christianity in the world, but also not be willing to plant a seed if the opportunity presents itself.
That is so good. That's powerful. Yeah. That is so good. Well, Sean Houle, thank you so much for your time. We, of course, are so grateful that you survived and that you continue to survive every day in a different way and encourage people. Can people follow you? Or I don't know if you're big on social media or not.
I'm not like I'm not the biggest social media guy. I struggle with it. But I do have an Instagram actually newly created. It's called 498. It's FORE_98. It's sort of a play on FORE as in golf, because I love golf.
Okay.
And then also 4 fingers.
Oh. And your middle. Okay, I didn't notice.
Yeah, it's because of the reconstruction.
Right.
They cut off my index finger down
I'm
here.
gonna try to get a zoom in. Do you mind holding your hand up for us?
Yeah.
There you go. Okay, yeah. I didn't even notice. I was gonna ask you about your finger, and then we got to talking, but yes, okay, that's a great job.
Oh, they did an incredible job.
Yes.
And so I've got that, and then I've also got the Houle Strong page, which that was created for me when I was shot, but then I sort of just took it over.
Okay.
So I do have that too. So I've started kind of I'm bouncing in between the two. Forgive me if I'm not quick on, because I'm not. I just kind of do it like as things, like I'll post something about today on there. It's kind of, I'm not like a social media guru.
Okay, I completely understand. But please know we really appreciate you doing this. I know it will encourage a lot of people, and that is the hope that people realize that they can overcome whatever they have gone through or what they are going through.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much. So I have had the pleasure of being your host, Natalie Wilson. And guys, if you love this content, please know we're going to have more episodes like this. Continue to follow us on MyFox 8 Plus as you watch They Survived. Until next time, thank you so much for joining us.